All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Alchemy Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Cartwright, and I'm so excited for this conversation today with Alex Hall. I've been trying to get you on the podcast for over a year. You've been a very busy woman.
I have. Busiest year of my life.
And so I feel so honored to have you in the chair next to me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So Alex, as I was driving here, I was thinking about our connections, and we have so many fun little rabbit holes we've gone down in our friendship. And what really stood out to me, I'm like, if you think about who are the most influential, impactful women in door-to-door in sales, you're at the top of the list.
Thank you.
You have made such an impact and have changed so many people's lives, and so many people look up to you. And I remember having you on stage at the Alchemy Summit, and you were a speaker, and just the way you speak and just the knowledge you share is just incredible. And so I genuinely feel honored and excited to have you.
You're awesome. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is that from my perspective, watching you train and see what you've built, it feels like leadership and organizational strategies come really natural to you. It feels like it's just like part of who you are. And it's like almost like when I see you speak and train, it's almost like feels like it's obvious. And that's when you know you're actually communicating with someone who's an expert, because it looks so easy. So I consider you an expert. So I'm curious for you, like, what is it about leadership and personal growth that gets you excited? Has it always been a part of your life? Have you always kind of been naturally engaged with it? Or was there like a specific moment when you're like, oh, I need to make some changes?
Yes, I think it's always been like a natural curiosity for me. Like from even being a little kid, I was always very like organizational things. I did a lot of like jewelry making and little things as a kid. I would sort all of my beads and all my bead boxes, and like I would sort all my clothes and my barrettes, like anything that I could. I just had super organized around. So that's always been a part of me. Leadership, like every team I've ever been on, I've always, been a captain of some kind or some type of position that's kind of like central to the team. I've always like gravitated towards that. But I think getting into door to door was the first time that I like understood more about self-improvement as like an entire industry and a topic that I could get obsessed with. And I think I've been like super passionate about learning about that. Probably more than anything else would be leadership and self-leadership.
Yeah, I really relate to growing up when I was like in Little League baseball and football and whatever. I was always the captain.
Yeah.
So I relate to that. And I'm curious, was there anyone who influenced you to kind of lean into those roles growing up? Because for me, it was my dad. My dad always kind of encouraged me to help others and, lead from the front. And so I kind of had a little bit of a push, behind me, my dad. So I'm curious, was there anyone in your life that really made an impact on you to help you really kind of step into those roles?
Yes, both of my parents were super pivotal for all of that. My mom was involved in everything I did growing up. She was my Girl Scout leader. She was the soccer commissioner for like the youth soccer league in my town, things like that. So she was always doing something. She was every homeroom mom, things like that, just involved and always there and kind of showing me that like being in charge, being kind of the center of things and guiding everyone forward was an easy thing to do if you stepped into it with grace. And then my dad, same thing. He was like my coach for every, sports team growing up, soccer, basketball, softball. He taught me to be tough. Like I didn't really find my groove in softball or basketball, but I would always like be the first person to foul out of a game. Or like I learned how to, when you're catcher for softball, you can like flip someone over top of you if they try to slide into home plate. So he taught me to be kind of aggressive and more like forward leaning, I think, with my approach to everything. And he's got his MBA. My grandfather was president of a bank and has had his MBA. And so all of them kind of like stepped into those roles in life. And it was never loud. Like it was never any of them pushing me to say like, hey, you should really look into this. You should really try to be in charge. But I think it was all of those people close to me showing me how to do it gracefully and lead with kind of that like calm, quiet presence that showed me that it was just kind of like a no-brainer for me to step into.
Yeah. So if we wind back to that version of Alex, who's kind of in sports and, junior high school, what did you think you were going to do growing up? Did you have an entrepreneurial itch, or what was going through her mind?
So my undergrad is in marine biology. And so that's actually what I thought I was going to do.
How cool is that?
It was great. I went to this small liberal arts hippie school called Eckerd College on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And it was top in the country for marine science. And I had always loved like science and math and chemistry. And so that's what I got into because I loved the outdoors. I loved animals. Like it was everything at once. And when I was there, that's kind of when I started like to gravitate more towards solar. I didn't realize that climate change was a thing until I went to college, and I was there from 2010 to 2014. And so while I was at school, I learned about climate change and how it was impacting our oceans and, microplastics. I did a ton of research. My thesis was on microplastics and how they affect marine habitats and everything. And so I got really into how renewable energy could positively impact the planet. And I was, again, super into nature and the environment. And so that became my purpose. I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I'm here on Earth, is to figure out how to stop this and get into the middle of it. And then getting several years into grassroots organizing and realizing how complicated it is, especially to try to attack a big problem in the world with like hatred for the other side and not understanding where they're coming from.
Say more about that.
Grassroots organizing, as a college kid that was traditionally very liberal at that college, like I didn't understand the other side of the political aisle at all at the time. And going after, big oil and everything, it was with, I would say, hatred and not understanding why that was even a part of our world. Like, how could they possibly approach life that way and build this industry that was so terrible for the environment? So approaching it that way, I met a lot of, headstrong people that didn't want to deal with that. It was hard to push legislation through. And so it was cool because at the time I got to learn a lot about debate and pushing my side and having conviction and doing research. So I really understood what I was talking about and wasn't just, coming up with stuff along the way. But I think a lot of that changed for me when I got into knocking doors for solar.
I think you're the first person I've ever heard where their genuine entry into solar was to save the planet.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't realize that.
Everyone's like, oh, look at these paychecks. That's what you get made.
Right.
You're like, I'm saving the planet.
I was like, well, I used to knock doors for solar to get like legislation passed in Florida, and I did it for free. So like now you're going to pay me to do it. That sounds great.
And I'm going to save the planet?
Yeah. So that's why I got
up.
into it. It was like an easy no-brainer when I couldn't find a marine science job when I went back home to New Jersey. Not a lot of marine science stuff out there. And so I got into solar, and I was like the only person I knew that cared about the environment and was doing solar. And the homeowners didn't seem to care that much either. So it was kind of weird for me because I thought I was like going to try to live out my purpose and my values. And then I had to kind of shift my mindset towards, okay, maybe it's not going to be about me pushing this agenda on them, but now I'm on the inside. Like, how do I influence this from the other side now? And so that was like my segue into business because I enjoyed sales and I did well as the top female. I was the only female, but then, top rep in my office.
Were you knocking locally in New Jersey?
Yes.
Right. I mean, 2014?
Yeah, 2014, 2015.
I'm sure it was a great time to be knocking in New Jersey.
It was. Yeah, it was
kind
a
of
good
a gold
time.
rush back then.
People were saving a ton of money.
Yeah.
It was before the setter model existed for solar.
So it was all self-gen?
All self-gen.
Was it PPAs?
It was PPAs. Yeah, I was mostly selling PPAs, but we were also making like $180 a kilowatt. And me then being at like Vivint Solar in 2020 and seeing the commissions, people were literally making 10x that in the state of New Jersey for selling. And I just was like, that was crazy to me, right? But yeah, that was like my segue into, okay, if I can't affect the change that I'm looking for in the world through like pushing this environmental agenda, all of that still fuels me. Can I jump into something where my strengths are providing so much value that I can kind of like change the machine from the inside? And so me jumping into office roles, which I excelled at, like with the organizational side and building out departments.
What was your favorite part of the organizational side?
Favorite part of the organizational side?
Yeah, so when you move to the inside, right, it's a totally different job. Like it's night and day.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously there was something within you that lit on fire.
For sure.
Right. Was it, having influence over people in the team? Is it influence on your thoughts and ideas then being seen expressed in the world?
I think that I enjoyed the problems that I was solving a lot. And I saw how, like, I had a good natural inclination for that stuff. And it was funny because a lot of people doing the role that I was doing didn't have the background I did, but my background helped, even though it was outside of the industry. Like me doing a lot of analytical work as a marine scientist was helpful because now I could look at giant masses of data that no other sales admin would look at, and I could find little patterns. Yeah. And I would go to my CEO and be like, hey, I don't know if you noticed, but this is happening in our different offices. And I'm seeing, how this KPI is being driven when XYZ happens. And it was just like a totally different way to look at stuff. So I didn't realize.
You probably blew their mind.
I probably did.
They were
I mean, I got
"What is
promoted very
going on?"
fast. Yeah. And I think that must have been why, but it was just a natural thing where I could tell it was making a really big impact on the organization going in that direction. So I guess we're all kind of drawn towards where we're going to make the biggest impact in life.
Yeah, and following your unique skill set.
Yeah.
Following what you're good at. How long did you stay in that solar organization before you kind of branched off and started your own companies?
I was in a role not owning my own company until the acquisition of Sunrun buying out Vivint, because I was at Vivint running the sales marketing department at that time, and that was in 2020. So I worked at a couple of the main, biggest solar companies. And one thing that was kind of unique, which was actually cool, this is part of why I was accepted into my MBA class down the road. But a pattern I noticed was there's not a lot of, in a growing door-to-door organization, we're now running a door-to-door organization, you're kind of figuring out like what roles do you need next on the internal support team as you're running, right? And not often do I know exactly what I need and then I search for the right person. Sometimes you find the right person and a role forms around them. And so I had done that throughout my office career without really knowing it. Like at my first company, there was no sales admin position open. I just used to call the director of sales that I was friends with all the time with suggestions because people would come into my office and not know something I thought they should on their first couple weeks. I'd call them with ideas on how we could improve training or little things like that. And then jumping into, we worked at Legacy Power, my husband and I, and we brought the setter closer model there. And that wasn't something they were planning on doing, but they wanted to bring us on for recruitment because we were good at that too. And then it was like, well, if we're going to recruit here, do you guys mind if we try out this model? This is going to be way easier to recruit for. So it's been a lot of trying to create value from the experience I have and me just being fortunate enough to run into leaders that were open to taking a chance on some of that.
Really reminds me of the book, The Energy Bus, right? And the whole premise of The Energy Bus is just get the right people on the bus and you'll get to where you want to go.
For sure.
Right? Don't get caught up in the route you're going to take. Don't worry about like when you're going to stop and when you get the right people on the bus and you're going to figure it out.
Yep.
And it seems a lot of that of just like being really lucky to get the right talent. And it seems like too, you also have an eye for talent, right? There's kind of like this natural, I can tell with you, you have like this BS meter. Like you can cut through BS. You can just read through BS. Like just from what I know of you, it's like you don't take BS. You can tell if someone's a joker. You can tell if someone's, trying to like scam you or get money. At the same time, you also can spot talent, right? So what are the traits that you look for when you're hiring someone to place into a company where like, okay, this person's actually going to succeed, and that they're actually traits sometimes some hiring people don't see, might overlook?
Yeah. And are we talking about kind of like higher level roles, like leadership types of positions?
So leadership roles and sales roles.
Yeah.
Like, so when most people listen to this podcast are on the door still. They're trying to build a team. They're trying to recruit. Recruiting is really interesting in the industry because I feel like most people have a scarcity mindset around it. So if anyone will talk to them, they're like, yeah, for sure. Like totally. I need, I'll hold on to this person. They showed a little bit of interest. Yeah. Right. However, they overlook red flags.
Totally.
Right. So when you're building an organization, what are the kind of top attributes you're looking for that you think that some people might overlook?
Well, I mean, the first one is like trying to discern what someone is telling you about themselves, if that's truly an experience that they had, or are they just really good at like recounting something that somebody else did nearby? Meaning like, was somebody a rep on a team and they saw their manager lead day to day. And so now they're trying to come into my company and interview for a management position or tell me that they deserve a management position. So they're telling me what it's like for them to be a manager. And it's like there's this subtle difference between what you would say if you've been a sales manager and you've dealt with the whole like slew of different problems that you run into, pros and cons, versus someone that's just watched a sales manager in action and thinks they know what that job is like.
Is there any insights on language you should look out for? Specific language?
I think that a lot of it would maybe be more around the specific types of experiences that they talk about. I think a big thing too is victim mindset. Like I've run into so many people in this industry where they're like, yeah, I, was a millionaire in this last industry, or I did this, that, and the other thing. But suddenly now they have no money. They have none of that influence that they
took my whole pipeline.
Yeah, they took my whole pipeline, like all of these things that have nothing to do with me. I mean, I think self-awareness is really what I'm looking for, right? So if I can tell someone's giving me authentic self-awareness when I'm asking questions that should prompt them to tell me a lesson they learned, like not every lesson has vulnerability in it, right? Like there's something where you made a mistake, you realized you did something wrong, and now you've learned from it and you're telling me about it in a way that with, eloquence and showing me that you've learned. But if you're trying to tell me about a lesson that you learned and you're not taking any responsibility or ownership for something, like major red flag.
And I think the word you just used right there, it's the key. It's ownership.
Sure.
Right. When I'm working with reps or working with managers myself or teams, and I'm hearing the leaders in the office not taking ownership, I'm like, hey, the leader, buddy, your ship is sinking. There's a huge piece of the ownership of like, hey, yeah, it didn't work out my last company. And I take ownership for that because I didn't knock all the hours and I didn't understand the solar industry fully. So when I was with customers, I didn't have knowledge about tax credits and whatnot. And I take ownership of that.
Totally.
Total green flag.
Yeah. Like I would rather somebody that's made a bunch of mistakes, knows what they are, plans to learn from them or put that into practice versus someone that comes in and tells me that they're perfect in an interview. Right? Because I think also if someone like has no failures to talk about or no moment where they're showing me like who they really are and what they're learning along their journey, you're probably just like not even on a journey. Like you're probably in the same spot you've been in for a long time and you just don't even realize that. So that's that like self-awareness thing that I would say comes up so much. I'm looking for someone that knows what they need to work on and is willing to voice that to me because I, as a leader, I'd rather help someone move forward because they're clear on what they need. And then I'm clear on what help I can give them to progress.
Yeah, it really reminds me of, I think Andrew Huberman talked about this on a podcast one time, but he says there's two types of people in this world. There's givers and there's takers. There's people who give value, who are here to support, like I'm here to make your job easier, I'm going to do my part. And then there's people who are to take value.
Sure.
Right? I'm going to take everything I can. I'm going to max my red line. I'm going to, get every cent that I can.
Yes.
Right? I'm going to take the incentives from the team. I'm going to take my time to area. I'm going to, I don't have to work today. I've got an install last week. So I'm going to I deserve this. Right? And most people, if you really get to know someone, they usually fall into one of those two buckets.
That's such a good point. And I feel like it's almost like givers still need something at the end of the day, right? But it's like they're thinking more long-term versus a short-term with the taker. So takers are maybe bringing in baggage from a bad experience at another company. So now they're like, screw owners. Like they're all going to try to steal from me. I need to make sure I get
everything that I
possible.
can in the short term because this is going to burn down, right?
Totally. But then like that type of person, if you have a bunch of those on your team that are all thinking short term, only what's in it for them, like what type of culture are you able to breed when you bring in new people? Are they really going to help those new people succeed? Are they going to provide that type of experience so everyone like levels up together? Probably not. So
you can't build off that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think anyone listening, if you're managing a team, take a moment to review your office, your team, and do you have more takers or do you have more givers on your team? Because if you have more takers, I got news for you this summer.
It's so true. Oh my gosh. And that actually, I've got a training that I do that's about, it's this kind of matrix that I put together. And it's kind of this idea of like positive and negative or toxic and healthy femininity and masculinity.
Share more.
So like, I feel like that comes into play because you need to understand who you have on your team, right? And what types of traits drive them and everything. And historically in sales, like if you think back to the Wolf of Wall Street days, it's been we accept healthy masculine and we accept toxic masculinity, meaning aggression and being territorial and, willing to fight over area or something. Like the kind of guys where if someone's in your hood from your team, you freak out at them versus being like, hey, my area, let's figure something out. Like how can you approach with abundance instead of that scarcity? And now we are in a totally different era, right? There's different customers need a different experience from you as a salesperson. Your team needs a different experience from you as a teammate in order to thrive. And so there's a lot of room for, like, I would say the healthiest teams have a good mix of positive masculinity and then also femininity. So more feminine traits would be, passion and creativity and having flow and empathy for each other, all of which create a high performing team. Right? But a lot of times if you don't know what's driving your team, you're accepting more of those toxic masculine traits, or you're at least allowing them to be there. And so it's actually causing your team to bring on low performers, right? Even if you have someone that's a high performer, but exhibits all of those traits, they're more of a toxic team member than anything. And so I think us shifting into this direction of how can I bring on a good mixture that makes sense for my organization of both sides of that creativity and
what does a healthy mixture look like?
I mean, I think it can be different for anybody, but I've heard from people in the past when I do either like a women's panel or guys are asking, hey, how do I bring on women to my team? Because I hired this, girl one time and this, that, and the other thing happened. And so we don't hire any girls. And like, well, that has nothing to do with her being a female. You just hired a low performer that also happened to be a woman. And now you're painted all women are going to be like this. But there's also toxic feminine traits too, right? Like being maybe overly emotional or directionless and not being able to, take action and move forward on things, taking a victim mindset, all of those types of things. If you've experienced that in your one and only, female hire you've ever made, you might look at all women and be like, I don't know how to hire and coach women. But I mean, you coach women all the time. It's a different ballgame, right? But you're still looking for high performance out of those people. It just might have more of a feminine twist to it than more masculine traits.
Yeah, and I look at like Zach Anderson, for example, one of my best friends. He's at Sunrun building his empire. And in the last year, he took it upon himself. He has an all-women's team.
I love that.
And he gets all his women killers around, and he put them all together.
Yeah.
And he has great leadership. I mean, it all works because he has great leadership. And now he uses that as a recruiting leverage where it's like,
Totally.
Hey, you're not going to be this girl that's going to come in with all these bros.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a spot for you where you belong and where you can make lifelong girlfriends and you're going to feel supported and get all your needs met and everything.
Yeah.
And I know that was one of his top performing teams last year.
Oh, I bet. I feel like women are the low-hanging fruit that no one has really cracked the code on, or most people haven't cracked the code on. So I love that he's leaning into that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I look back like some of my best friends, like Meg Del Toro, who's been on, on this podcast, and she's multiple 200 account Vivint rep for multiple years, top female rep. And so I think there is for people who are looking to build their teams in their regions, there is an unlock if you can learn how to work with women, because some of the best sales reps I ever know are women.
Absolutely.
And there's this weird, persona in the industry that it's bad to have women or not, there was at least, when I was there, but I think that viewpoint needs to change, and it's cool to see you leading that from the front.
Yeah, I think it's more of an unknown, right? Like I think that, and rightfully so, I feel like there's more consequences than ever if a man gets it wrong trying to lead women, and things can get misconstrued, and maybe that's not your fault at all. You're just kind of trying it out. So men in leadership trying to lead women, like there's definitely a right way to do it, and you can make mistakes and you have to be careful, right? Like you want to make sure that you're not crossing any boundaries ever and things like that. But that being said, like I think as long as there's a clear understanding of how to do it, or you've got really good intentions and some good coaching, it's easy to get done.
Yeah, look at my niece, Brielle. She's 20 years old. She actually just turned 21, but last year she was 20, right? She has a strong will, she's kind of this really into personal development. And she went out and sold for the grit, sold pest control in Alabama. And it was just so funny early on. She's sending me videos crying or whatever. I'm like, don't quit. You've got a great team. You've got a great organization. And she made over 6 figures the first year.
That's awesome.
Changed her life.
Totally.
And so I look back and I feel so grateful that she got the opportunity, because she grew so much from it. And like being a proud uncle, it's like there's such in your point, an untapped market on it. And I think those that can figure it out, like how Zach Anderson's doing it right now. And I think there's more of that available for more people.
Absolutely. And like, I don't know any other industry that makes as many people life-changing money as ours, right? Like it's such an abundant place to be. And I wish that I could share it with more women. And that's always been kind of like a push for me. How can we bring more women in and make them feel safe and supported so that they can thrive here too and make that life-changing money so they can also have, that generational wealth that we get to see.
Yeah. Such an incredible time right now. I'm curious so sounds like you're kind of behind the scenes doing ops and data driven decisions and whatnot. What inspired you to start Shut the Fluff Up? And for the listeners, what is Shut the Fluff Up?
Yeah, so we've got 2 companies right now. Shut the Fluff Up we've had since 2021, and actually it's a business consulting firm. We focus on door-to-door teams and specifically putting in place like the growth system. So helping with recruitment, retention, competitions, performance types of things, accountability systems to help sales teams thrive. And the name came from getting into kind of the consulting and public speaking space after Sunrun acquired Vivint back in 2020. We jumped in, and my husband, Brandon, and I both realized like there are a lot of people that say that they are consultants that have never ran large teams or large departments, or they say that they can coach, but they haven't really had that many experiences. And the way that they would approach talking about giving advice was very fluffy. It was just like totally off of vibes, no systems or anything. And so we are the no fluff people. So we go kind of the opposite route. We, have ran big departments at massive companies and know what more of the ins and outs have been like. And
the tactics, the real workings behind it.
Totally. So being able to understand, what truly works and then implement that at different size organizations has been our bread and butter.
So what are some of the biggest red flags you see? So company hires you, Alex, we need your help. We need to build out our leadership and organizational, right? So they hire you on, they, open up the hood. What are some of the things you see where you're like, oh boy, like this isn't going to be a rough go. We're going to fix it, but we got some work to do. What are the biggest mistakes people are making right now?
I think that, there's so many. I would say there's a couple top ones though. So a big one would just be, who do you have in leadership? And is everybody truly on the same page? Like, do you have loyalty and connection and competency and people that are going to, share the vision for the company? Or do you have people that are good at sales or, some type of high performer, and now you're afraid to lose them as an owner? A lot of times I see companies like that where we've got just a leader in place that is not going to do what's best for the team and the organization. And so trying to build around a shaky foundation like that is just impossible.
One thing that I've seen, and I would love your input on this, I coach a lot of high performers, and there's a transition that happens for top performers. And it's because they're a top performer, they just get thrown to be the leader.
Yeah.
Right. And their job changes. You go from, hey, I need to go sell the most accounts on the team, to where your new job is now leadership development and people business.
Yep.
And a lot of people, just because in this industry, we reward top performance. And I've seen a lot of companies throw people into leadership roles when they're not ready for it.
Yeah.
And they don't have the skills for it. Right. So what are the skills? Because I think everyone that listens to this pod, for most people, want to become a leader. They're building a small team. They've already been a top performer. Their teams are growing. They're going maybe into a region. What are the skill sets needed to make that jump from performer to actual true leader? What are the skill sets that you've seen, those who make that transition in a positive way? What are the skill sets they need to learn?
I think a big one is reconnecting with what it feels like to suck at something, right? Because most top performers haven't felt like they've sucked at their job in a long time. So they jump into management and suddenly they're, learning a lot of new things. And maybe they're trying to have, hard conversations with their team, accountability conversations, which can be super tough, right? And so nuanced. And they try to have this hard conversation. It goes south. Their, rep that they were talking to is really pissed off now, and they just can't deal with failing at a new thing. So I think that's a big one. Reconnecting with, hey, once before, to get where you are today, you had to suck at your job and you got through that time period. You learned, you were curious, you stayed open, and now you're where you're at today. So same thing can happen again. You're just repeating that cycle with new skills. I think a big one too is figuring out, your time management and prioritization. It's a whole different ballgame, right? Like it's not like you stop being a top performer, you're only a manager. Most of the time in door to door, we need to continue being a top performer. And now we are also managing. So you rely on your ability to keep that initial skill set in place and that, same energy going while learning all of this new stuff on top of it. So the abilities you had when it came to time management and prioritizing what is most important before, what got you here won't get you there. You have to completely redo it. I think that's really a big one. And I think a third one is learning how to paint the vision for your team. I think that is so underestimated. I was actually just talking to a client about this earlier today. It's a recruiting department for one of the national solar company brands. And we were talking through why the recruiters felt like they were losing control in the conversation. And they were like, well, we're trying to, connect with this person, but also not lose control in the conversation, right? Like we want to be the one in control, but we also don't want to come across too standoffish. And so it's this weird balance. And I asked them how they were portraying the company before they got into the actual meat and potatoes of the interview and how they were talking about the company and the opportunity. And they're like, well, we just mentioned that, we're a national brand and this, that, and then we just jump right into it and we start asking questions. And I was like, well, how do you how do you expect somebody to be begging for the job that you have to offer if they have no idea where they're going and you haven't like literally painted the picture in their mind's eye of what they could be when they get there, right? So pre-framing to anyone that you're leading or you're recruiting or anything, where you're trying to go with your responsibility within the organization, I think is so powerful and can do so much of the management for you, in my opinion. Because if someone feels inspired and their personal values connect with the company values and they can see their role, like if you're trying to, bring on 10 new managers in the next 12 months, you're going to expand into all these new offices and they can see themselves being a leader one day within that organization. Like now you're connecting some of those dots and giving them a path to talk you through and to connect with. So it's not you having to drag this person behind you the whole time you're leading them. They can lead themselves. I think inspiring self-leadership in your team is like a big hack because you don't have to drag everyone with you the whole time.
What you said rang so true for me when you talked about values. I've been spending a lot of time recently on values and been thinking about what are my own values, right? And getting clear on what my values are has been life-changing for me.
What are your values?
Integrity, hard work, adventure, growth, love, and just knowing that and then actually spending the time and knowing what they are has been really, really helpful because now we can find alignment.
Totally.
Right. And so getting clear on what your values are first as an individual is non-negotiable as a leader. And then getting clear on what your values are as an organization. Right. Because people are either going to be aligned with them or they're not. There's kind of like no in between.
Yeah.
It's either you're in or you're not in, right? And if you're not clear of what your values are as an organization and a business and a team, then you'll kind of take anyone can kind of come in and whatnot. It can kind of create mayhem, right? And so I love that you talked about getting clear on what someone's values are. When I'm, trying to, potentially onboarding a new client for coaching, I usually like to ask them like, hey, what are your values in your life? And most people don't know.
Yeah.
They'll say like, work hard, connection, But I'm like, really? So this is actually just a hack. If you're listening, get onto ChatGPT and say, Chat, give me a list of the top 100 core values.
Yeah.
And then just scan it. And which ones resonate to you, right? And then as a team in an organization, you'd have core values as a team in an organization and remind your guys to stay in alignment with that, right? When you are not in alignment with your core values, you can feel it, right? Something's off. It creates anxiety. It creates stress. It creates overwhelm. Right? It creates, poor performance. When you are in alignment with your values, what happens when you are in alignment with your values is it increases your self-esteem. And when your self-esteem is increased and you feel good about yourself and you feel inspired and motivated, what naturally happens to your performance?
It's going to go up.
It's going to go up, right? So I love that you mentioned core values. And I think, a team activity for everyone listening is to get really clear on what your core values are as a team.
Yeah.
And make sure everyone gets bought in.
For sure. And I think doing that as a group is a super fun exercise. Same thing with like the performance matrix stuff I was talking about earlier, doing something like that as a group where it's like, hey, we're trying to intentionally shape the culture here. Like, what do we want to be known for in this room? What are the traits that we exhibit when someone new joins the team? Like, what are we looking for in people? Can be so powerful because it's one thing for an organization to choose their values, right? And each of us have our own personal ones, but I think culture is best created when it's done by the group and you're able to get a little bit of input from everyone that's a core team member that you have. So pulling all that together. I also love too, like, I don't know how involved you are with your ChatGPT, but me and homegirl go everywhere together. So like if I asked her.
She's on your hip always.
Yeah. And I was like, Nova, what are my core values? Like I'm trying to come up with my list of what I really value. What do you see out of our conversations that like stand out for you?
Great prompt.
She probably would already have some really good ideas for me. So maybe we start there too.
Yeah, it's a great play. Yeah, there's something to knowing what your core values are and writing them out that it changes the way you interact with the world in a very positive, uplifting way. And then whether it's business, whether it's romance, whether it's new friendships and new community, right? You can now take your core values and say, hey, are these in alignment or not? It helps you make decisions. Like it's so clear on decision making.
Totally. And you mentioned too, if you're not clear on your values, you might take anyone, like you're kind of not sure what you're trying to move forward or toward or against, right? So I think it also helps you operate from a state of abundance as a leader. You're no longer in that scarcity mindset of I'll take anyone with a pulse this summer because I just need to fill up my teams. It's like, no, we're gonna stand for something.
We're gonna be intentional.
And then we're gonna talk to people about that in the interview and kind of see, what does that tease out in that person while we have that conversation.
But it also creates high amounts of credibility for yourself, right? So if I'm talking to a potential new hire and I'm talking about these are my core values and this is where this is where we are and this is where we're going. And for you to be a part of this organization, these are the core values that have to be in alignment. What am I actually signaling to that rep?
That you're fine without them.
Yeah.
You guys are going there whether this person comes on board or not. And so
that I take this really, really serious and I'm committed to my growth and my development and we're abundant and we're going with or without you.
Totally.
And so people will be like, wait, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
It's going to create kind of that neediness of like, wait, hold on, I want to be on part of that.
Well, it's like a magnet, right? If you're not clear on what you stand for, you can't attract the right people because there's nothing to attract them to. So you have to stand for something and be willing to not stand for other things and then speak about that to your people so that you can bring on more people that are like-minded.
100%. One thing I really admire about you too, Alex, is that you share these incredible principles. You're an eloquent speaker, right? You can explain them very simply in a way. And a lot of that has to do because I can tell you're also committed to your personal growth.
Yeah, religiously.
Yeah, it seems like it's really important for you. And one thing that we have in common is we both attended the Hoffman Process.
Yes.
Which I think, and I was actually talking to someone about this earlier today, from my experience, and I've done a lot of stuff, right? I've done therapy and Tony Robbins and ayahuasca and all the things, right? For me, Hoffman's the top of the list because in my experience, it is the most well-structured experience that keeps you engaged. You can't escape from it.
Yep.
And it forces you to look at all of your unhealthy patterns.
Yeah.
And how they're showing up in relationship and how they're showing up in business and how they're showing up in relationship with yourself and how they're showing up with family members. And the Hoffman Institute, highly recommended, is all about breaking unhealthy patterns. So I'm curious from your perspective, what were the breakthroughs for you at Hoffman?
Oh my gosh. By the way, now that we're talking about this, I think 2/22/22 was my first day of Hoffman.
Amazing.
Yeah. So 4 years ago,
Meant to be.
right now, I was
You were in it. You were in it.
Yeah.
You were in it.
I was in all the prep work and everything. I think the biggest, I had a lot of breakthroughs with Hoffman. I think a big thing for me was realizing how much weight I was putting on myself. And then also not just, seeing that I was doing maybe some harm with how high my standards are for myself, but also like accepting that part of me. I love, the process of identifying patterns and like incorporating the healthy version of it into your life. So it was like, I could appreciate that my parents, because of their upbringing and, how they raised me and everything, gave me this innate need to be the best and succeed. And the downside was that I kind of had this tie of like, I am worthy of love if I am successful, which means if I'm not
worthy
successful.
of love if.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if I was not succeeding at something, that would emotionally impact me so much before Hoffman, and still does to a degree, right? But I think I've incorporated, better alternatives along the way. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was big because then it was like, well, I'm not abandoning that part of myself that has high standards for me. It's now, how do I use that, drive for excellence to love myself even when I am having a hard time. So that was probably the biggest one, honestly.
It's so powerful and it sounds corny and fluffy and woo-woo, but like it really is so true that radical self-love and acceptance is the biggest unlocking secret to life in my experience.
Yeah, I feel like it's, the more I've tapped into that, the more I feel like this like overflowing cup. Like I have so much more to give to others because I am not pouring from an empty cup anymore because I've got kind of that better like self-esteem that I'm working from.
And from my perspective, it was that, and my self-worth wasn't dependent upon an outcome.
Yeah.
I have so much self-love radiating from me. And it's a work in progress, right? It's just a lifelong process, but really getting to points in my life where I felt self-love for the first time. I'm like, wait, so if I go try this entrepreneurial thing and it doesn't work, I'm still valuable?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it then,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. You
Yeah.
can approach so much more without the same fear.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not like, going into this like weird dark space. It's like, well, I can figure out anything now because at the end of the day, like
If
people
it
are still
fails,
gonna love me.
I'm still worthy of love.
Yeah.
You know, because I was the same way growing up. So, you know, being vulnerable on here, you know, my dad passed away in 2011, colon cancer, and we were really close. Really close. He was my coach and, you know, one of my best friends. I felt his love so much. He showed up, he supported me, but the way he expressed his love was using the words, "I'm so proud of you."
Oh yeah.
Right. So if I made a good play in the basketball game, so proud of you, bud. If I made a good play in the football game, so proud of you, bud. Dad, I won student body vice president in high school. I'm so proud of you, bud. So what happens is my subconscious then learns that, to get love, I have to do something worthy of being proud of. So I have to be a top performer and I have to get the best grades and I have to make a bunch of money and I have to have the coolest car and I have to have a #1 best-selling book and I have to have a cool podcast. And then if I do those things, then people will say they're proud of me. And if they're proud of me, that means they love me.
Yeah.
Right. And it just got really messy, you know, as you get, you know, into my late 20s, it just got really, really messy. And it really was crazy when I went to Hoffman is I thought, because I went to Hoffman because I was struggling with dating and relationships. Like I just wasn't good at dating. Like I just kept sabotaging my relationships. So going in there, I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure there's stuff with mom that's like affecting my relationships. And then I left Hoffman, I'm like, oh, it's all because of my dad. And I never would have put that together.
Sure.
Right. Because I was trying to perform for my partners. Like, okay, if I do something that makes them proud, then they'll love me. They'll say I'm proud of you. And that means they love me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm just constantly performing. And so changing that pattern has literally been life-changing for me, like truly life-changing. And for anyone listening, I can't recommend Hoffman Process enough. And I'm so glad you went.
I mean, really just doing anything that completely shakes up your like state of consciousness like that, I think is so big. Because if we're always learning from the same people and the same podcasts, and if you talk to 5 other people in your industry and you ask them their top 10 books and they're all like 8 of them overlap, like there's a lot that's good, right? But like there's so much similarity. How do you think differently, right? We're all destined to think the same if we don't get out of our like zone that we're in all the time and try out new things. So yeah, I heard about Hoffman from a podcast I was listening to, like a women's entrepreneurship one, and it just sounded great. And I'm so happy I went.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to be a Hoffman grad with you.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So I look at that. I think very similar to you on that, where I'm like, I like to do something at least once a year that shakes the tree.
Yeah.
Right. So for me in 2017, it was the first time I did ayahuasca. Then then Hoffman's on that list. And then Tony Robbins, like going to go do like a date with destiny, you know.
I haven't done that one, but it sounds incredible.
Get it on the list.
Yeah.
Like get it on the list. Like Tony, you know, you hear Tony Robbins and you think, okay, motivational speaker, whatever.
Yeah.
Then you actually go to one of his workshops and you're like, oh, this guy is an absolute spiritual giant that is energetically like giving you energetic surgery.
Yeah.
You know, there's the fluff about Tony Robbins, but when you actually like dive into his stuff, it's life-changing.
Yeah, it's real.
You know, and so it's kind of thing that's kind of coming up for me too is maybe Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I have plans.
I haven't gone all in on Dr. Joe. I'm still a little hesitant with Dr. Joe. Something just isn't quite clicking for me.
What part?
I don't know what it is with Dr. Joe. You know, I'm warming up to him.
Okay.
I am warming up to him, but there's something about when he says that DMT is created in your pineal gland and you're releasing it. And I'm like, I don't think that's scientifically true. I think it's a hypothesis, but he's like basing his whole company on it, you know? Like, this is a hypothesis. This isn't for sure. Makes sense. And I've had moments, you know, maybe I just got to buy into it a little more, you know, you got to be, I'm not all in on it. I got to maybe I'm on, but I've done some of his meditations. I really enjoy it. Like some of the stuff he says when he talks about how he got in his accident and healed himself, you know, that was really inspiring. I do believe in a lot of that. And, you know, you hear a lot of the testimonials of people that have, you know, cured their depression and by, you know, embodying the emotion. Of how they want to feel. And
and even bigger things than depression, like cancer and stuff. Like I feel like there's been crazy illnesses cured with Joe Dispenza stuff. So I agree. It can't all be not
you need
woo-woo.
to go
There's
and you need to let me know how it goes.
I will.
Yeah, I need your
I'm
feedback.
absolutely going to go.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, I mean, what's on your radar coming up? Like, is there any other, like, you know, if someone's like, hey, Alex, I need to change, right? I need to go shake the tree. What is it for you that's getting you fired up as you move forward?
Oh my gosh. I mean, other things that I've done in the past couple of years that I think have been life-changing for me that I would recommend, just depending on kind of where you're at. A big one for me was going back to school, like getting into our industry. A lot of people don't even have like an undergraduate college degree, which is fine, right? Like you can be super successful without that in our space. And at the same time, I had always felt a calling to go back to grad school, and I wanted to go back. And I just had a lot of people that I respected telling me, oh, you don't need that. You don't need to go back to school. So I delayed it and I delayed it. And then, it was 2020. I was in the car with my dad. I just felt stuck. I had been in corporate roles, and I was at Vivint Solar at the time, and I loved my position there, but I didn't feel like I could feel my growth starting to kind of feel like it was tapering off a little bit running a department. Because I ran other departments. It just didn't feel different enough. And he was like, honey, you keep talking about going back to school. Like, just do it. Like, what are you waiting for? Who's stopping you? And I was like, okay, let me just try it out. And going back I went back and did the executive MBA program at University of Utah. So I was surrounded by other people in executive positions with a lot of executive experience that were, in all different stages of life. I think I was the youngest person there by a couple of years. So we kind of spanned, but we had real life experience to talk about. And that was also at the time where I was leaving a corporate role, going into a COO of a startup role, going into D2D experts, getting into consulting and public speaking, and then branching off and merging several of our solar clients together into a merger company that then I was going to be chairwoman of the board for. So there was so much that I was learning on the fly, getting into entrepreneurship and getting to measure that against like being in an accounting class and seeing our financials and getting to play with that in real time. That was so rewarding for me and gave me such a good reinforcement of skills I already had, and then helped out on a lot of my deficits too. So like I didn't need it, but then now that I'm in the telecom space running a fiber company as well, most telecom companies really care about having that type of experience. So now I get to stand out amongst my peers because I've got my MBA and I can hang with them on some of that stuff. So that was
how long? Because I love this topic of conversation, because to me, this is like you had a very strong intuitive hit.
Mm-hmm.
That I need to go back to school.
Yep.
And it just kind of kept poking you.
Yeah.
Right. And so the things we know we should do in life, we kind of already know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's not like some big reveal of like, oh, I was supposed to go back to school this whole time. Wow. Why didn't anyone tell me?
Yeah.
You kind of knew.
Yep.
Right. And so was it a constant kind of poke that you kind of always knew you needed to do? And then you finally surrendered to it? Or was it more of help with that being like, hey, let's actually get you there?
Well, I think that like gave me permission from an outside source, which, because this was before Hoffman and the love yourself thing, and another pattern of mine was people pleasing, like all of that made it so that I was way more apt to respond to something that was external. So that I think that's why I moved forward. But yeah, I feel like at least for me, my intuition shows up with, if I have to think about if this thing was meant for my life, if I was 95 on my deathbed looking back at my life, would I have assumed that that already happened? Like if I woke up today in my 95-year-old body, I probably would have been like, oh, cool. Well, I went back to school. I traveled to all these different places. I, did these spiritual practices, this plant medicine, whatever. Like that's the stuff that feels like, oh, duh, that was supposed to be a part of this lifetime for me. So I think that's what it was. You're right.
Really
it's
beautiful
like
way
always
of thinking
knowing
about
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions to ask for people who go have a big experience, whether it's, Tony Robbins or Hoffman or ayahuasca or going back to school, is what did you think you were going to get out of it versus what you actually got?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, that's actually the other big thing that I've done recently was just this past year. I mean, I did have my first baby.
Yeah, talk
which
about
has
rite of
been
passage.
crazy.
Right?
And I'll talk, I mean, there's so much to talk about.
I do want to get into that.
But the other one was, I did an ayahuasca ceremony. And so that I assumed was going to help me in completely different ways. I mean, granted, I would say every intention that I wrote out beforehand ultimately came through after the weekend. But it was interesting going into it and thinking that it was going to be so much more career-based and having it be so not about my career. The career was so secondary compared to what I was journeying through at the time, right? It became a lot more kind of similar to Hoffman, was, getting more in tune with my inner child and getting through other layers of thinking I, did a great job loving myself since my Hoffman experience, but clearly there were other layers for me to work through. Getting connected to other parts of me that are outside of my career. Cause I don't remember the last time in my life where I wasn't completely bent around my career, and now running businesses, like it's hard to have that not be the top priority. I think the only thing that's finally pulled me out of career coming first and then everything in life kind of coming secondary, because I also have my husband who's my business partner, right? So it's easy. Like, it's not like I'm missing out on time with him. I get time with him every day. It was finally having my son and having this moment of like, oh my gosh, every moment that I'm on a call that I don't need to be on, or spending time on a project that I shouldn't, or wasting time at work is time that I'm not getting with him, which is clearly, again, like going back to what was I meant to do here in this lifetime? Like, that's the biggest part of it, is raising him and spending time with my family.
I've talked to a lot of my friends recently who have had their first kids, and a common kind of phrase they've said, I was talking to my best friend Scotty about this too. He's like, there's absolutely no way to describe what it's like having a kid until you have a kid, and what it does to your brain on your priorities. Mm-hmm. He's like, he said the comment to me, he was kind of careful because he knows that I'm single, he's like, Doug, before I had my son, what am I going to do? Just build a business and make money the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's kind of what I'm doing. But he's like, one day you'll get married and have a kid and you'll get it, And so is there any way to describe what it's like to have a kid until you have a kid? Or is it just one of those things you have to experience?
There's nothing I can say that comes even close to actually experiencing it. But I will say that I feel like it's been the biggest wake-up call you didn't think you needed. And life continues on as it did before in many ways, but like my approach to life is completely different. And I didn't think I was off on how I approached life until I had a kid.
How did it change?
And now get to approach it differently. Priorities, I think, are a big one, right? Like I mentioned, I would say I thought that I was good at getting stuff done, organized, all the things that you're like, yeah, I know you as this in the business world. None of that even comes close, Doug, to how I am now that I have a kid. Oh my gosh, I can't even describe it. Like, I am 100 times more urgent now. I've gotten more done in the past year of business, being a first-time mom, going through postpartum, like all of the things. I've done more in this last year of business than I've done in the past several years combined, because I'm making bigger decisions. I'm making them faster. I am cutting out a lot of the bullshit that doesn't matter in my day-to-day. Like, I had no idea how fluffy my day was until all of a sudden I was like, okay, every moment that I am working on stuff that's not my specific job to do, I'm doing a disservice to me and my son and everything else now. Like, there's bigger stakes, I think. And those stakes change the way that you look at your life in so many ways, I think.
Don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like as I hear that, what comes up in my mind, I'm like, that sounds incredibly fulfilling.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so much so. And, I would say fulfillment in what I do and feeling like I'm driven by purpose is like, that's my biggest drive for my career. And then suddenly putting all of this effort into a career and then having a kid and being like, oh my God, if I had just had this baby years ago, it would have totally shifted things, right? Like, yes, there's so much fulfillment in having him now. And everything, people say everything I do is for my kids, but I see where they're coming from, where like everything I do now is to create a life for all of us. Like, I'm not just responsible for my life or my shared life with my husband, but we now have a family. And like, me being the mom in that family, I feel like I'm the energetic, like I'm in charge of the energy and the vibes of our family. I'm in charge of creating the magical traditions that we're going to remember every year around Christmas. I'm in charge of making sure that we bring in flowy, fun, warm, family moments together to break up the, business-driven life that Brandon and I have had for many years. And I take that responsibility more seriously than I think anything else. You're the
CVO, the Chief Vibe Officer.
I am.
Yeah.
What a cool title.
Yeah. What's it like watching Brandon be a dad?
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. It's so great. He flowed into it so effortlessly too. And same thing if he was sitting here talking to you right now, like he's like, I wish we had started earlier. I want 10 more. Like, it's been such a big game changer for him as well. And I think us seeing each other as parents has just deepened our love so much. Like, I feel like this is something I figured out once I had a kid, but it's like every type of love that you have in your life is experiencing an entirely different type. It's a new dimension of love, right? The way you love your friends is different from the way you love your parents and your siblings. It's different from the way you love a partner. And now I've got a child that I get to love in an entirely different way.
That hit me. You access a new dimension of love.
Big time.
Whoa.
Right? Like, do you have pets?
No.
Get a dog, get a cat, get someone in your, I mean,
You have
that was
good
another
dogs.
thing too.
You have
The
dogs,
best
right?
dogs.
You
I
have golden,
two
don't you?
Goldens.
Yeah.
They're our babies for sure.
They love your son?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have a cat and all three of them are like so sweet with him.
Yeah.
And they love him so much.
Yeah.
And then it's like get everyone in your life interacting. Like, have you ever like had maybe your mom or a friend meet a partner and it's just watching your two dimensions of love connect. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so rewarding.
Yeah.
Like it's just opening up another version of that.
Accessing a new dimension of love. I've never heard anyone say it like that before, but I'm like, that clicks in my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to find someone to get who wants babies? Yeah. Wow. Really inspiring. Well, Alex, so many shifts this last year, so much growth, so much expansion.
Yep.
New dimensions of love.
New dimensions.
What are you most excited about for 2026?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm very much trying to do it all. Like having my son, I don't think, like I mentioned, it hasn't sacrificed my business side of things. I think if anything, it's amplified a lot of things and it's made me a better CEO for our companies. So we've got Shut The Fluff Up. And then I also run a fiber company and we've been doing very well. Fiber was something that we kind of tripped into. I didn't think that I was going to run a door-to-door team again. But here we are.
Fiber's hot right now.
Fiber is hot. We've got over 500 active reps.
Wow.
We're in 43 different states.
I can guarantee that there's someone listening to this right now who's interested in selling fiber.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
If they want more info on how to be a part of your fiber team, where should they go?
The League Fiber on Instagram is a great way to find us. So yeah, hit us up.
I know there's a lot of people shifting there right now.
Yeah. And I feel it's honestly healing a lot. Like a lot of my senior leaders are guys that I met in solar or pest control or something that were doing fine, but then maybe, hardships hit solar and some people were in companies that thrived and others just weren't able to find their footing again. And watching those guys get into fiber and build massive teams is like healing their inner door-to-door child. Totally. That was hurt,
There's a client I work with. There's a client I work with this exact scenario. He was crushing it in solar, rug pulled, scrambling, found fiber, built a massive AT&T team down in Louisiana. And it's just like, just watching him, just like his light turned back on.
Yes.
It's been so beautiful.
Yeah. And it is like changing lives in the way that I'm getting to reconnect with like all the things that I've loved about our industry through this new vehicle. And being able to circle back now that I've got the experience that I do has helped me, I think, lead the company in a very unique way compared to how I would have before. And when we first got into fiber, the plan was just to facilitate payroll for some of our friends that ran sales orgs that wanted our help connecting with ISPs, like the internet companies. They just weren't able to get a contract to get the leads, but we had the experience in the industry. So we jumped in and did that. Once we got in and realized there's not many companies focused on rep experience or scaling, it was like, oh my gosh.
What an opportunity.
We could be the Vivint Solar, the Vivint Inc. of fiber. And so that's the new plan. And
so
we want
exciting.
To build 2 and sustain 10,000 plus accounts a month. And that's going to require us bringing in a lot of different leaders and building leaders and creating the experience that they need in order to bring people in and give them the success that they want to have, right? So it's building this machine with everything that I've learned in the past, finally, for my own business that I get to own and be looking at from a totally different view. Like this is my first time being CEO of a door-to-door company. I've been executives, I've been an owner, but this is my first time kind of taking that role. And so it's been super rewarding doing that and being able to build and problem solve and doing it with the best people.
Back in your element.
I feel back in my element. Yeah. And I've got the best team. Like I feel like I've never been surrounded by a more capable team that I love working with. Like going back to the values part of our conversation, everyone's got the same values. We have really high trust. We have high transparency. Like, I will be super real with all of my guys. I'm never trying to sugarcoat things or hide things. And at first I thought that that was a weakness in me as a leader, because being a female CEO in a very male dominated space, I feel like there's like, who do I look up to, right? I look up to a lot of people, but there's also like, I feel like there's always been something missing, and who do I try to emulate and try to work towards? And so I would look at male CEOs that are running successful organizations in our space, and I would say, okay, how would they handle this problem? Okay, let me try to handle it that way. And there were so many times where it just didn't hit home for me. And again, going back to now I've got a kid, I don't have time to mess around. So like, I don't handle things the way someone else would handle them. I handle them the way I think is best now, which has brought me back to like my own authenticity as a leader in a way that I wasn't expecting to experience, but it's been so rewarding. And then I am very lucky, you know, being in a position to have nannies and bring my son to work every day. He just comes to the office with me and Brandon and the team, and we've got a nanny at work and she helps out. But I can literally like go from running our company to breastfeeding my son in my office and spending 30 minutes between meetings, hanging out with him and being silly, and then jumping back into work. And it's been tough to like go back and forth sometimes, but it's also so rewarding. Like, other women in my position might have to put their kid in daycare or give up the job that they had, you know, focused on for so long. Like, it's taken me a decade to build me into the person I am today, and my companies to where they're at today, and to be able to create the experience I am for the company that we're running, right? And so for me to give all of that up for my son, that also wouldn't have felt right. So me figuring out a balance between the two has been a lot of 2025. And so what I'm excited about moving into 2026 is we have the vision for scale. Everyone's on board. Everyone's ready to run through a freaking brick wall to get that done together. So now it's just moving along and scaling our company and going through everything that we're going to need to 5x from where we're at today. And all the while making sure that I'm not so focused in that I can't take all the time that I need for my son and my family. Like, I'm at that point in life where my son is a baby and he's perfect in every single way. My husband is young and strong and like in every part of my life. Our dogs and our cat are young and healthy and, you know, ready to go on any adventure we want to on a weekend. My parents are still alive and loving being grandparents. Like, we're in that sweet spot, you know? And so I
savoring it.
Don't want to miss out on anything for the sake of something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2026 is the year where we do it all.
Beautiful. And it sounds like the best of your work is yet to have happened yet.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate everything that's happened, but there's so much good in front of me.
So much more to go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Alex, I'm inspired by you. That new dimensions of love just like shattered my brain. I'm like, I feel like I'm on a psychedelic trip right now. Yeah, that really unlocked something for me. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate our friendship. I've always been inspired by you. I've always looked up to you. I've always appreciated your work. And I thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Back at you, Doug. Thanks so much for having me.